I'm going to go ahead and hit the record. All right. And with that, I'll go ahead and start the meeting. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. I like the way the flyer reads noon on Zoom. So welcome to our noon on Zoom Gar Byram monthly guest speaker series with the Democratic Club of Claremont. It's a nice, wet, finally, some rain here on a Friday, but welcome. Glad you could make it. As always, it's always a pleasure to welcome everyone, but in particular, I'd like to acknowledge we have Laura Bollinger, our new Citrus College board member, joining us this morning, and we also have Dave Niemer, one of the members of our school board. So welcome to both of you, and welcome to everyone. This group always, our club is really fortunate to have a lot of great presentations, and that's to the credit of Chris, who just brings up really dynamic speakers. But before I turn it over to Chris to introduce our speaker, I do want to remind everyone our next general membership meeting is the 25th, Monday the 25th, and that will be on Zoom still. So we're still we're hoping to transition to in-person meetings, but like the rest of the world, we're kind of still in a little bit of flux. But in between, we'll keep meeting and we'll keep meeting, having our noon on Zoom meetings, and then we'll have our evening on Zoom meetings, I'm sure. But with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Chris, who is who's been bringing up our speakers, and I'm sure he has another one lined up for us today. So Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Great, Sam. Thanks for that introduction. After our talk today, I'll give you a preview of some of our upcoming talks as well. So today I'm very pleased to introduce to everybody Tina Wu Fredericks, who was recently elected to the Pasadena Unified School Board in 2020. She's a mother of two girls, 11 and 14, a former high school math teacher with a degree in mathematics, currently working as a software engineer building mobile apps. She was inspired by Bernie Sanders in 2016 to take a leadership role in the Democratic Party and to run for office. In fact, some members of our own Democratic Club may know her as a third-term ADEM delegate of our Assembly District and current executive board representative of our Assembly District, which is 41. Joining Tina today is Brandon Lamar, who's a proud native of Pasadena, California. He's currently the California Director of Youth Advocate Programs. He's developed strategies and advises brands and communities on innovative ways to educate, engage, and activate organizations to solve social issues surrounding millennials. Whether it's developing curriculum to engage millennials, organizing grassroots programs, working with groups to create policy, or speaking on national stages to bring awareness to the needs of youth with complex needs, Brandon has done it. So please join us in welcoming Tina Fredericks and Brandon Lamar. Tina, it's all yours.
Thank
Sam,
you.
can you give her control of the screen so she can do that? Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Democratic Club of Claremont. Really honored to be here. And yes, some members are probably wondering why a speaker from all the way in Pasadena, because we are bounded by our Assembly District 8041. And I'm really appreciative of those of you who supported my election for E-Board. So really honored to be recently elected to the school board, and honored to be sharing some of my experiences. So let's see, how do I do this? Give me a second. Okay, so the topic today was next generation challenges for public education, and I and Brandon Lamar will be speaking. This is my family. Again, that's my daughter Laura and Lucy. and my husband, Alec. So in preparing for this presentation, there could be so many issues to cover, and we only have such a limited time, but the topics that came to mind was, of course, COVID, the learning gaps. Basically, kids are behind due to the previous year's remote learning, and obviously that is not the ideal educational instruction environment. So they're doing a lot of catch up now. Equity, as COVID has emphasized, highlighted that there's a lot of systemic equity in education as well as in our community. And prior to COVID, due to the protests regarding George Floyd, there was just a huge awareness about our society's racism. And so that actually came into education and really trying to make our education more culturally responsive. And DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so a lot of districts are we have our own committee, a DEI committee now, and we're also implementing ethnic studies. So that's a nice positive thing that came out of that movement. Mental health is an issue. Kids at home were remote during our quarantine. And so personally, my own children were, I could see that in my own children. And having a teenager, it's really important to have that interaction with your peers. And that was really difficult. And she's still trying to get over some of that effect. I know that in Claremont, there's a movement to not fund SROs. So there's, a lot of conversation about to increase counselors over SROs. Outdoor learning is now a really hot topic because it's, as well as a safety thing for COVID, it's much safer when you have when you're outside. I think the transmission rate drops 19 times if you're outside. So there's been a movement to have more outdoor learning spaces, and we have a lot of one-time funding coming from state and federal, and some districts are using that money to fund outdoor spaces. And that's in general just a nice, more engaging environment for kids. Universal pre-K, as that's a hot topic, and hopefully that's we're going to be passing the infrastructure bill, the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, and that would address equity for sure. If we can get kids coming into public education with a leg up, with everyone on the same level, and we're not playing catch up from the beginning, that would address equity from the start. Affordable housing, we know that affordable housing is directly linked to public education. I believe a majority of the kids that we are losing, the decline in enrollment, is due to the skyrocketing prices of rents and eviction. So if that's something that directly affects our public school system, and if we don't have enrollment, we don't have funding. So most of our funding comes from the state, as you know, and that's based on average daily attendance. And so each student is approximately $10,000 funding to our schools. And I already covered ethnic studies. So these are the hot topics that came through my head, and we only have a limited time. And here's a picture of, as you guessed, an elephant in the room. And you might guess what the elephant in the room is in education. And while I want to talk about all these great things like outdoor learning and universal pre-K, we can't get there until we address the elephant in the room, which is COVID. Sadly, I talked to other trustees in other districts, and we're still battling COVID, the pandemic. And I was actually thinking, I wonder if we'll be doing this again next year. I wonder if it'll be a repeat of, are we gonna have enough people vaccinated? Are we gonna still be testing, weekly testing? Are we gonna battle quarantine and all of the challenges of COVID? So my focus will be COVID, because I believe that unless we definitively defeat COVID, we will not go back to normal. We will not reimagine education. We have to end this pandemic. And that means ending future variants as well. So just to go over the effects of COVID, we already had a decline in enrollment, but now it's made worse by COVID. Some, private schools are small, so they're easy to kind of adjust and comply to the guidelines of safety. And so when you have a big school district, it's much harder to adhere to some of the guidelines. And our infrastructure, our facilities aren't, some of them are really old. So when you have to rely on the HVAC and ventilation, you have to have, a minimal level of operation. So we have to deal with that kind of crumbling facilities, while maybe a newer school, small, can do that. So that's why we lost some kids. I believe we lost about 1,000 over the past year, and that's a lot of kids. And so again, lower enrollment means less funding for us, and less funding means we're not able to pay our teachers the competitive wages. So we also experience teacher shortage, retaining them, recruiting them. I mean, they've done so much during COVID. They've done the remote learning, hybrid instruction, where they're teaching kids on the screen as well as in front of them. I mean, that's really unfair for teachers. And they still, they don't get the pay that they deserve, and also have to handle the large class sizes. So, and a lot of them have retired because of COVID. It's a life and death situation. Why would they continue if they don't have to? So we have the same staff in a district, but we have additional demands because of COVID. With if we detect if there's a case, then we have to do the contact tracing, and all of that those are extra tasks that our staff has to handle on top of the normal educational tasks. So and then quarantine also causes disruption in learning. So there might be a case in a class, and then the entire, some kids in that class who have close contact with that positive case has to stay home for 5-10 days. And so they won't get the teacher instruction. They get a packet or whatever online assignments. So they don't get that quality education. And it's that back and forth that is really disruptive. And then some families have kept their kids at home for the entire, time until their child can get the vaccine. So those kids have been home for much longer. So we are having to address the learning gaps for independent study students, so the kids that are at home, and then having to help for the quarantine kids that have to go back and forth. And this has, this ongoing mental health issues, and Brandon Lamar will be covering that. So then the other challenge is having this vaccine mandate, which has been very controversial, very politicized, and as private corporations and have experienced that, they say that, well, employees will leave if they are forced to vaccinate, but it seems more the case that they don't, and they just get the vaccine anyway. Just to give you an idea of our district, we have about 2,420 employees and 15,000 students. There's about 5,500 students above age 12 and about 10,000 students below age 12. And you probably guess why 12 is important, is because we have the vaccine has been approved for age 12 and above. And and my daughter, I have two, 11 and 14. So I have my 14-year-olds vaccinated. My 11-year-old, we're, desperately waiting for the day. Hopefully by this month, they will fully approve the vaccine. And on August 11th, Newsom had a vax or test order, which we all thought that was a mandate, but vax or test just means that, this is a vax or test order for employees of schools. So basically, if you're vaccinated, you have to submit evidence of proof of vaccination. If you're not, then you have to submit to weekly tests. So, but the deadline to implement this is October 15th, which is next week. And so far in our district, 50% of our employees have responded to our vaccination survey. Basically, like you must submit your proof. And other 50% have not responded at all. So, we don't know, half of our employees, which is about 1,000 employees, we don't know if they're vaccinated or not. And that is very scary, for me as a parent, to send my child to school not knowing if her teacher is vaccinated. So just to be clear, the vax or test requirement is actually not a vaccination mandate. It's more of an identification mandate. And then as of October 1st, Governor Newsom announced COVID-19 vaccine requirement, but it will take effect January 1st or July 1st, depending on the full approval of FDA. And then here's a quote by him that says, "We are all exhausted by this pandemic. We are exhausted by the seasonality of it. We are exhausted by the variants and mutations. We hope this encourages folks to get vaccinated. We have no trepidation, no hesitancy in encouraging local districts to move forward more expeditiously. We expect on the basis of the other similar requirements that you'll start to see an uptick in people getting vaccinated well before those dates that are established." So while there's this date that's far away, districts can, there have been districts that have been mandating vaccinations. So this is just more encouragement for districts to move forward. So again, I just want to emphasize that COVID, we must defeat COVID once and for all. And as the governor alluded to, the, what was his wording? He said the seasonality of the pandemic. So we have these surges that come and go. And the only way to prevent the next Delta, the next very contagious variant, is if we have the high vaccination rates and to finally put a nail in the coffin in COVID, so we won't be doing this again next year. So I just had Dr. Fauci's quote here: "The only way to avoid future variants is to remove the opportunity of replication in unvaccinated individuals." And as far as my own school district, I passed a resolution as a Pam Nagler, who is one of your members. She and I co-authored a resolution together and got this passed for our district. And I put the link here. But basically, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. A minority of people, even health professionals, are putting out misinformation, and that is preventing people from moving forward having vaccination. So there is the science, and then there's, you know, the misinformation that we have to actively fight against. We have to be an active part in fighting against. So that's why I passed this resolution of facts. And at the very lastly, our board of seven members is divided. We have 3 that support vaccine mandates and 4 that don't. And I'm on the 3, obviously. And so the majority, unfortunately, have avoided the topic. And we have, as I say here, we have to rise above for the greater good. This is not political. This is safety. This is for our kids. And if we're trying to, not offend anybody or any particular group of people, we will not be able to defeat COVID. So I hope that we all come together as a community to finally put an end to this pandemic. So that is the end of my presentation. And Brandon, you're up next. And we can take questions if there's enough time at the end, if you have any questions. So thank you for this opportunity to include my friend Brandon Lamar. Well, I am honored to be partnering with this in this presentation. So let me stop this and pass it on to Brandon.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I don't know if you guys are excited as I am, but I am just loving this weather that we're having today. I'm tired of sweating, tired of being hot, and so I just love it. But today I'm going to talk just very shortly about mental health, especially when it comes to our students and our schools. As of 2020, we have seen a high rise in the United States, especially in California, when it comes to teenage mental health, when it comes to kids' mental health. And so this is an issue that we are actually shining a light on. And the real reason is because when we send our kids to school, 8 hours of that day, their teachers are going to be dealing with these mental health issues. Their staff at the school is going to be dealing with these mental health issues. And so we have to find a way to combat the mental health. We have to find a way to help our teachers, help our schools, help our young people ultimately so that they can be successful individuals. So before I go any further, I'm going to give you some statistics because, I mean, who doesn't like data, right? That's really shows us who's telling the truth and who's not, right? So in the United States, 2.2 million people, million youth, that is. So that's from the ages of 10 or 8 to actually 18. 2.2 million young people suffer from severe depression. 2.2 million. In California, 240,000 youth in California suffer from major depression. And the flip side of it is they could not afford mental health services. So even though they're depressed, even though they're severely depressed, their family cannot afford to get them the help that they need, whether it is a therapist, whether it's a counselor, or what it may be. They don't have the resources to do that. And also in California, 140 of our young people in California has substance abuse disorder. 6.1 million young people in the United States suffer from ADHD. 4.5 million has behavioral problems. 4.4 million has been diagnosed with anxiety. And 1.9 has been diagnosed. Now it's up now to 2.2 with depression. And I'm sure you guys already know this, but suicide is the second leading cause for death for the ages of 10 to 35 years old. And so we see now that this is an amazing and big issue that we have to shine this light on, because if we don't, then we'll just see the numbers continue to rise. As working in the field that I do, I work with young people who basically they're from the ages of 10 to 24, and we focus on juvenile justice and mental health services with them, also in regards to education. And so our main focus is to help our young people stay out of the juvenile justice system, but also stay out of our courts, but also get the help that they need when it comes to mental health. A lot of our young people that we are seeing that's going into our juvenile courts or going into our detention centers now are severely and have high cases of depression, have high cases of anxiety, have high cases of schizophrenia, and the list goes on and on and on. And, you know, a whole lot of reasons that we're seeing this is because, you know, we really haven't put an emphasis on the support that they might need. You know, growing up, I can tell you this, growing up, we can tell that, you know, a kid does something and you just call them bad, right? You know, that's just a bad kid. Well, nowadays, it's really not that they're a bad kid. It's really that something is really going wrong deeper, and it's causing them to act out in certain ways. And so what we are trying to do now is we're trying to help get our young people the help that they need. So that means that we are, especially the program that I'm a part of, which is the Youth Advocate Program, we are getting our young people free sessions with therapists. They're getting free sessions with counselors. Not only them, but also we are helping their families with counseling as well. Because it's one thing to get our kids counseling, get our kids therapy, but their family needs to help as well. Their family needs to help on how to help them cope and how to help them deal with what's going on, or the diagnosis of their kid, or how to help them when they're in the middle of a crisis. Because the real thing is about 50% of our families don't even know how to help our kids when they're in the middle of this crisis, or when they're in the middle of a crisis, let alone teachers, right? Teachers are trained and they went to school to teach. They didn't go to school to help a kid in the middle of a crisis. And so that's a lot that we're seeing, especially in our school districts as well. And so, you know, we really want to share this education and make sure that, you know, for me, it's very dear to my heart, especially because I see a lot of our kids on a daily basis that are suffering. And I mean, definitely suffering. And it's showing in the education, it's showing in their learning ability. Tina spoke about a few minutes ago about the learning gaps. These are really showing in our learning gaps. And so if you have a kid that's sitting in front of 30 to 40 other students and they're not able to comprehend what's happening, or they don't know how to read at their grade level, it's going to show, and they're going to act out, and other things is going to happen. And so, you know, we're just really trying to help the best way we can. But, you know, as you guys probably have seen, especially with Dave, I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot about this being in the school district now. You know, we have to help our kids when it comes to their mental health. We have to help them so that when they get older, they'll be amazing citizens of California. And so if we help them now, they'll be better later. And so I'll stop then, because, you know, I definitely want to make sure we have room for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tina and Brandon. I think we've got a good group here, so I'm going to let you just, I'll eliminate being the middleman. I'll be the middleman who's eliminated. You just call on people yourself. It looks like Don Martins has a question, so let Don lead off. Those of you, if you know how to raise your hand, it's down at the bottom of the screen under reactions. You can click that button and then raise hand, and then you can take it from there. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, Brandon and Tina, this is the Democratic Club of Claremont, and there's school boards all over the country, and larger expressions of a school board. You're talking to Democrats. Is anyone talking to Republicans? And why would you talk to Democrats rather than Republicans? Or what kind of reactions do you get from Republicans talking with them? I know it's a politically loaded.
I haven't spoken specifically just to Republicans. So go ahead, Brandon, if you have.
I think for me, and the subject that I covered is, even though I am a part of plenty of Democratic clubs and I sit on the board of Black Los Angeles Young Democrats, this is not just a Democratic or Republican issue. This is an issue that all of our kids are dealing with. And so for me, I talk to all different groups about it. Everyone who is willing to listen, I'm willing to talk. And so that's really the cope of it. And that's really the bottom line for us, is that, when our teachers are, as us, when we're dealing with young people or when we're dealing with students, they're not looking at which political party that, each one is in. And to be quite frank, a lot of our kids, especially teenagers, are not really focused on that. They're focused on how am I going to get to college, or when am I going to do next, or what's going to be the next phase in my life. And so I think the answer to your question is yes, we do talk to Democrats and Republicans about these issues. And the main reason is because it's not just a party issue, it's a people issue. This is issues that is facing our children, our communities. And so I think the different groups that we can go into to spread this and to help educate our communities, the better we will all be.
I also think that, thank you, Brandon. I also think that of all the issues, I think when it comes to our children and our grandchildren, you will find that people will come together. So, I mean, my position is a nonpartisan elected position, so our platform is perfect to reach all groups.
Mel, go ahead.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, my comments and my question are to both Tina and to Brandon. I'm Mel Boynton. I'm a member of the club, and I'm deeply retired, but I have family members in education, an elementary school teacher, stepdaughter, and I have a grandson who's just approaching preschool now. So I have a keen interest in this. Tina, I really celebrate your focus on COVID. And I'm afraid to tell you, I follow that topic fairly closely, and it's going to be with us for quite a while. It's not going to go away. So as a board member, when you have to decide about error handling in the schools and whatnot, you need to prepare for the long haul. I have a very specific issue that I've been involved in for probably 10 years, and that is the Start School Later movement. You've probably heard of it. Our Senator Anthony Portantino was the prime sponsor behind the Start Later bill. And so my question is twofold. Is the pandemic slowing down the school district's implementation of the Start School Later? And have you, as a school board member and staff, are you aware of the sort of mental health benefits of Start School Later? There's a well-rested child has much less stress than one who's been made to get up early and be sleep deprived every day of school. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Yes, we are aware of it and we are already implementing it. Actually, our parents have pushed us to implement it faster than that the bill gave the requirement deadline for. So yes, we are aware that it has benefits physically, mentally for our children. I can't speak for other school districts, but there is a deadline to implement that, that requirement. But we have done that already.
Basically, same answer for Claremont. I think the bill, I think the requirement was that it was supposed to start next school year, and that we've jumped ahead of it, and other districts are as well. So there's less of this complication, this problem we were worried about being totally out of sync with districts that we're involved with in after school activities. And that's, since it was actually became state law, that became less of a worry. And I think next year it's supposed to be everybody.
Yes.
Other questions? Going
There's a
once?
comment on the side here. I don't know if this is a question from Carolee Monroe. A high school teacher has shared that with their students missing in-person instruction for more than a year, the students need more individualized instructions. However, class size is 30. Oh, that's a good comment. Yes, the class sizes are still large. How we address that is by having additional instruction after school that can be individualized, or we can hire tutors and to maybe give individualized instruction during the day, but also with summer programs, we can address the learning gap. Maybe a fellow board member can also speak from Claremont Unified.
One thing that seems to be happening more now compared with several years ago is during the course of a school day, there are more pullouts going on, and it doesn't quite get it to individualized instruction in terms of just one-to-one, but there's a lot more fluidity in the school, and this was before COVID. Everything got more complicated, through monkey wrench and the whole works last year, and we haven't really recovered from that. But with TOSAs, teachers on special assignment, there are more of them than there used to be, and some of that is funding that's temporary, but it keeps being renewed and extended. And then there are more intern type people working on campus, college students, and so there are opportunities to pull groups of kids out, and there's just much more action in the course of the school day. So that partially addresses what the question was about. To get real individualized instruction is about the biggest money item there could be, because that requires sharply reduced class sizes. I taught at our continuation school in Claremont for about 20 years, and a lot of that was individualized instruction, but that has to be heavily subsidized, and unless there are going to be salaries severely cut, it's hard to get class sizes much smaller. So that's kind of hit an impasse financially. But there are more creative things going on, and taking that approach, I think, more than you would have seen 10 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Niemer, for pointing that out about the instruction or more pullouts during the day. I do want to mention my daughter, who's 11. She has an AVID class. I don't remember what AVID stands for, but in that class, there are 2 assistants or college kids that help kids that are kind of slower. And she said that this is a really helpful, they've been very helpful. And she doesn't actually get attention from them, but it's helping the kids that are falling behind. So you're not really giving, the teacher, it's not the teacher providing the individualized instruction, but there's qualified tutors present. So that may be another option, and something that our funding, our our one-time funds can support, can fund.
Thanks, Tina. Laura, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Tina and Brendan, for being here today. Interesting topics. I agree with you, Tina. COVID is the elephant in the room and beyond. It's on our agenda at Citrus College every month. We've made some policies that we've really been very safe. We haven't had any outbreaks, but we've had a very slow opening compared to K-12. We have entirely different rules than K-12 does. My question for you is, I'd like to hear more about your COVID vax resolution, and I applaud your advocacy for immunizations. I think that vaccinations is really our key to recovery. And then also, second part of my question, can you tell me more about your board's dissension between advocacy for vaccines? Is it for staff and faculty? What are you advocating for with vaccines?
Thank you for those two questions. I'm going to put in the chat the link to the resolution of the facts of the COVID-19. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question about the resolution? You just wanted to know what it's about?
Yes, and I can read it later. Now you give me a link, that's fine. But could you address then your board, what you are advocating for in vaccine mandates?
Oh, right. Okay. So early in the debate, when maybe like a couple months ago, when around the time Governor Newsom had put in place his policy on vax or test, I guess the low hanging fruit was to get a vaccine mandate for staff. You know, if we can get staff, then we can get to the students. So, I mean, they already qualify, you know, there's age-wise. So that was the debate. And our board didn't even want to, I mean, the board majority did not want to even bring that up as a topic. So we didn't even want to touch the topic, let alone who we're going to require. So, but for me, I wanted to start with the staff. And then a fellow board member said we should do this, we should require it of students as well, because students make up, you know, 2/3 or 3/4 of the district community. So, you know, it puts the teacher at risk, even though they're vaccinated. The entire class of students surrounding her or him are not. So yes, the student body is a majority of the community. So if we can get the students, then we're way ahead in the vaccination rate. But as far as tactically, the staff first, then add the students later.
Thank you.
Pam Nagler, did you want to comment on the resolution or the board division? Pam's been my partner. She helped me draft this resolution. I don't know if you want to.
Pam, you have to unmute.
Maybe she doesn't know how. There you go. Good job.
Tina knows I'm technically challenged. I would just say, you know, with a recalcitrant board, I think that the idea is to take it in tiers. And the first tier would be your staff and all your vendors, all the adults. But then you go in and it's pretty easy to go into the 16 to 18 because Pfizer has full FDA approval. And then I guess the next phase would be to go to the 12 to 15 group. And it looks like coming down the pike, we're going to get the 5 to 11-year-olds will at least have emergency use authorization. So tactically, I guess this doesn't help somebody on the community college level, but you know, tactically, that's an approach I think for K through 12 is to take it in tiers, make deadlines. I would say close the loopholes because of testing. Testing is, as Tina has pointed out to me many times, it's reactive, it's not proactive. It just identifies, it doesn't, it doesn't prevent. And
I'd
they're
like to make a
expensive. And testing programs are really unwieldy and expensive with false positives, and yeah, and I just go back to the expense when you could get somebody vaccinated, and that's kind of the end of the story, you know. So
just to update you all, so Citrus College, we don't have a mandate for students. It's an equity issue. The minorities are the least vaccinated. We don't want to keep them away from our community college. And we also see that once we get them in, we can have more conversations about vaccinations. So we have not approached mandating for students because we just really don't want to keep out students. But we have currently are testing everyone vaccinated or unvaccinated to prevent an outbreak. And we have a very strong contact tracing program. And so we have had no outbreaks. The question is how long we can continue that aggressive testing. And right now we have funding for it. And we'll just hope that we can continue with their education programs and get more people vaccinated. So it's a tricky one, Tina, and I know that there's pitfalls with both sides of that conversation. So thank you.
Let's
for your
let
thoughts.
let Brandon get the last word in, because we need to wrap up with some announcements at the end. So Brandon and Tina, go ahead, and then we need to move on for the remainder of our meeting.
I'll make this super quick. First thing, I think that you're absolutely right. Minorities are definitely the ones who are not getting vaccinated. I'm definitely proud to say, as a Pasadenean, that Pasadena is now 89% vaccinated as our total population, but we still have more to do. Here's the thing, though. I think that when it comes to, and I'm vaccinated, and I got vaccinated because I really didn't want nobody to tell me that I had to get vaccinated, right? It's different when somebody has to force you to do it. And so I just didn't want nobody to force me. But on the flip side of it, I have friends that are getting vaccinated because certain places won't allow you to go to visit there if you're not vaccinated. Certain areas, you can't go to certain destinations if you're not vaccinated. And so if that's the issue, and that's certain things that they're doing, it's just funny that you'd rather get vaccinated because you can't go somewhere rather than getting vaccinated to cover the people where you're living or where you are. And so I think, especially when it comes to, like, for example, Citrus College, I think some of the things and some of the initiatives that you guys should cover is covering and having, say, for instance, you get a few people of minority who are minorities to post like a vaccination, like they got their vaccination or they did something like that to encourage other people. Because we typically go for things and go for and support stuff that do things that look like us, if that makes sense, right? And so if I got a vaccination, my cousin is more than likely going to get a vaccination because they trust me, right? And so we have to do it, and it's sort of kind of, it's like playing the game and tricking people, but that's typically, what we have to do. I was a part of the initiative with the Pasadena NAACP, and we partnered with Huntington Hospital, and we got African-American doctors, we got African-American teachers, we had African-American professors and civic leaders that actually, and pastors. And so when you drove around Pasadena for about 6 months, you saw, pastors getting vaccinated, their vaccination pictures on billboards, or you saw professors or doctors and stuff like that. And so I think, we really have to, even though it's going to be a slow pace, and this is just an idea, it's not me telling you what to do, it's just an idea. I just think that you have to educate and promote. And what better way to educate and promote than to have people that look like the people that you are trying to get vaccinated and publish it that way? Like, hey, this is what we did. Because I'm gonna be honest, my community, being African-American, they had certain questions, right? Certain things like, oh, it wasn't for us and nobody had it created in mind. I mean, you go all down the line. This vaccine is for everybody. It's not one particular person that is not for. And so that's just my 2 cents. I think that, you know, with the minority groups, we have to use the minority groups to pull in other ones to educate. So that's my 2 cents. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah, you got a thumbs up from Mel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to add a little bit. Brandon, that one piece was just golden. That and I hope that makes a difference with Honorable Bollinger. I think that there's the easy way, which is having a mandate and saying, okay, everybody's required, but maybe that's not as easy. But you have to shift to possibly a gray area, which is a campaign, which is what Brandon is talking about, is not only doing a testing plan, which is what you're already doing, but have a campaign where you're partnering with the community, and you're not going to get 100%, but at least you're trying to get as many shots in arms. And you have, this is going to take work, and it can't be just a policy that you're voting on the board. It's going to be an ongoing campaign. So thank you, Brandon, for your ideas.
Let's give a warm thank you to Tina Fredericks and Brandon Lamar for their presentation today. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Brandon. I hope you can hang out for just a few more minutes, because I know Pam wants to give an announcement. Before we turn things over back to Sam, I'd just like to remind everybody that we have 3 wonderful talks coming up on October 25th. We're going to have Karen May talking about presenting on speaking softly while carrying big sticks. In other words, developing muscle, political muscle in particular. Then on November 12th, we're going to have Professor AJ Algan, who is from the Center for Islamic and Middle Eastern Studies, discussing Turkey, the US, and Middle East policy. And then at the end of November, November 29th, we'll be graced with the presence of the Honorable Chris Holden, who is our assembly member for our district. So that will take us up to the Christmas party as well. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Sam Pedroza to lead us with our closing remarks and announcements.
Thank you, Chris, and let's give Chris a nice congratulations or a thank you for bringing our speakers this afternoon, and thank you, Tina and Brandon, for coming on with to our group this afternoon. Aside from the announcement for our next general membership meeting on the 25th, are there any other announcements? You mentioned some of them, Chris. Are there, Pam, you're raising your hand?
Thank you. Well, I have a good group of Democrats here. I wanted to announce that as of today, David Welch, a Silicon Valley multimillionaire, just released a ballot initiative that he's backing. It's called High Quality Education, but it's basically for privatizing public education. It's for school choice and school vouchers. And so, like I say, this nice group of Democrats, I want to give you a heads up, because it's going to be a big fight. And CTA, California Teachers Association, I'm sure is going to have to throw a lot of money at it to get it not passed. LA Mayor Villagrosa is backing it. David Welch was the one who fought CTA a few years ago about teacher tenure. It was Vergara versus CTA, and he eventually lost. But he has big pockets, and he can keep pursuing these ideas over and over again. So just a heads up. So it's going to be on the 2022 ballot, and we have to really fight it doggedly from the get-go.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pam. And I know what I missed, and I'm sure Carol Lee and Chris are probably going to talk about it. Carol Lee, are you muted, or can you have your hand raised?
Yes, very briefly, We will have a booth at Village Venture. We need volunteers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if you have some time, what are the dates on that again?
October 20, October 23rd.
October 23rd, so in 2 weeks. So yeah, if you have some time on to hang out at the Village Venture, I'm sure it'll be a much nicer day than everything will be cleaned out. So we'll have a nice Claremont day to be able to hang out and see all the kiddies with their costumes. I think they still do that, right? It's a really fun program, and it'd be a great way to reach out to Democrats. And Carolee has put together some great discussion points for the club. Chris, you have your hand up as well?
Yeah, I do. I just want to make sure I could share the screen. Can I do that? Yeah. Just want to remind people that this month we're raising money for the political fund. And so if you're able to chip in 10, 20, 50 more dollars, it's right here under ClaremontDems.org. You go here to get involved, donate to the club. And if you click there you go. And you have these little radio buttons down here, and you can donate to the Political Action Fund.
Do it. No,
anyway, just wanted to remind people about that because we're pushing it between now and Christmas.
Every time Chris demonstrates that, the club gets another $50 or something. All right, folks. Well, again, thank you for spending your lunch break with us with our noon on Zoom, and thank you again to our speakers. Enjoy the weekend, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon, especially at Village Venture. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Tina. Thanks, Brandon.